The day I found out my husband was driving my Mercedes with another woman in the passenger seat while I was getting my second round of chemotherapy was the day I decided he'd lose everything. And I mean everything. The house, the cars, his reputation,
His dignity.
every single thing he thought he'd inherit when I died. Because that's what he was waiting for. My death. While I was fighting for my life, he was planning his next one. With her money. My money. My name is Keisha Whitmore. I'm 38 years old. I'm a real estate developer, a mother of two, a cancer survivor, and the woman who destroyed the man who tried to bury me before I was dead. But let me take you back to where it all started because you need to understand who I was before cancer and who I became after. You need to understand what he threw away,
What he gambled on.
and why he lost everything. I built my company from nothing. Absolutely nothing. Back in 2008, when the economy crashed and people were losing their homes left and right, I saw an opportunity. I was 23 years old, working as a leasing agent at an apartment complex in Bankhead, saving every penny I could. I watched families get foreclosed on, watched entire neighborhoods turn into ghost towns. And while everyone else saw tragedy, I saw potential. I took out a small business loan, bought my first foreclosed property in Southwest Atlanta for $32,000.
It was a disaster.
Holes in the walls, plumbing shot, roof caving in. But I learned how to fix it. YouTube became my best friend. I spent 6 months renovating that house myself. Painted every wall. Laid flooring. Fixed cabinets. Sold it for $89,000. That profit became the down payment on 2 more properties. Within 5 years, I owned 17 homes. By year 10, I had 31 rental properties generating passive income and had started my own commercial development firm. Today, I own 47 properties across Metro Atlanta and my company is worth over $12 million. $12 million. Built from sweat, strategy, and refusing to quit when everyone told me I was crazy. I met Devin 18 years ago on one of my first major renovation projects. He was working construction, part of the crew I'd hired to help flip a duplex in East Point. He was 41 now, but back then he was 23, just like me.
Tall.
Handsome. Had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Strong hands from years of physical labor. He worked hard, showed up on time, never complained. We talked during lunch breaks. He'd ask about my vision for the properties, seemed genuinely interested in what I was building. 6 months into that project, he asked me out. Took me to Pascal's for dinner. We talked for 4 hours straight. He told me about growing up in Decatur, about his father leaving when he was young, about how his mama worked 3 jobs to keep him and his sisters fed. He said he wanted to build something meaningful with his life. Wanted a family. Wanted stability. I fell in love with who I thought he was. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony at my mama's church in College Park. Pastor Jerome Mitchell officiated. Tamara, my mama, cried through the whole thing. She loved Devin. Thought he was exactly what I needed. Someone solid. Someone who understood struggle. We bought our first house together in Cascade Heights. Not the big one we'd end up in later, but a nice 3-bedroom starter home. I was building my empire. He was still working construction, bringing in decent money. We were a team. Then I had Jamal when I was 22. Devin was amazing during my pregnancy. Rubbed my feet every night. Went to every doctor's appointment. When our son was born, I watched this man cry holding our baby, promising to give him everything he never had. 2 years later, Mia came. Our daughter. Devin said our family was complete. Said he was the luckiest man alive. Here's where things shifted. My business started taking off. I mean, really taking off. I landed a contract to develop a small commercial plaza in South Fulton. The profit from that one project was more than Devin made in 2 years of construction work. Then I got another contract. Then another. Money started flowing in faster than I could count it. We upgraded to a bigger house in Cascade Heights. The one with 6 bedrooms, the circular driveway, the chef's kitchen, the finished basement. We bought luxury cars. A Mercedes G-Wagon for me. A Range Rover for Devin. And somewhere in all that success, Devin stopped working. It happened gradually. First, he said he wanted to focus on being home for the kids while I traveled for business meetings.
Made sense at the time.
Jamal was 5, Nia was 3. They needed a parent around. Then he said construction was too hard on his body, that he was getting older, and the physical labor was wearing him down. Said he'd look for something else, maybe management or project coordination. But he never did. He just became Mr. Mom, taking the kids to school, going to the gym, playing golf with his boys, living off what I built. Looking back now, I can see it was a red flag. A man who stops working, who stops building, who gets too comfortable living off someone else's hustle. But I loved him. I trusted him. And honestly, I was too busy building my empire to notice how much he'd changed. How entitled he'd become. How he'd started introducing himself as a real estate developer, taking credit for my work, telling people about our company when he hadn't contributed a dollar or an idea in years. We lived well. Really well. Vacations to Dubai. Private school for the kids.
Designer everything.
I drove my Mercedes G-Wagon. He drove his Range Rover. We had a housekeeper who came twice a week. A landscaper for our yard. We were living the dream. At least, I thought we were. Then March 2023 happened. I started feeling off. Tired all the time, which wasn't unusual given my schedule. But this was different. This was bone-deep exhaustion. I'd wake up after 8 hours of sleep and feel like I hadn't slept at all. Then came the cough. Persistent. Wouldn't go away no matter what I took. I figured it was stress, maybe allergies. Atlanta pollen is no joke. But my mama, Tamara, she's a retired nurse. She knows when something isn't right. She pushed me to see a doctor. I'll never forget that appointment. Dr. Simone Grant. She's been my primary care physician for years. She's also become a friend. She ordered a chest x-ray after listening to my lungs. Said she wanted to rule some things out. The x-ray showed a mass. A mass. She tried to stay calm, professional, but I could see it in her eyes. She ordered a CT scan. Then a biopsy. Then I was sitting in an oncologist's office being told I had stage 3 lung cancer. Stage 3. I'd never smoked a day in my life. Never. Turns out it didn't matter. Genetic predisposition. Sometimes your own DNA betrays you. I sat in that office, and everything went numb. The doctor was talking about treatment options, survival rates, clinical trials, but all I could hear was white noise. All I could think was, how was I going to tell my babies that their mama might die? How was I going to tell my 16-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter that I had cancer? How was I going to keep my business running? How was I going to survive this? I told Devin that night. We were in our bedroom, the one with the view of the backyard where we'd hosted so many barbecues and birthday parties. I just said it straight. Baby, I have cancer. Stage 3 lung cancer. His face crumpled.
He cried. Held me.
Said we'd beat this together. Said he wasn't going anywhere. Said he'd be by my side through every treatment, every appointment, every hard day. He promised. And I believed him. Telling my kids was worse. Jamal tried to be strong, tried to be the man of the house, but I saw the fear in his eyes. Nia just cried and asked me if I was going to die. I told them I was going to fight, that I wasn't going anywhere, that we were the Whitmores and we didn't give up. My mama moved in the next week to help with everything. Bless Tamara. That woman has carried me through every storm in my life. I started chemotherapy at Emory University Hospital in April. If you've never been through chemo, let me tell you, it's hell on earth. They pump poison into your body to kill the cancer, but it kills everything else too. My hair fell out in clumps. I'd wake up with handfuls of it on my pillow. I shaved my head bald after 2 weeks because watching it fall out was worse than just cutting it off. I lost 30 pounds. Food tasted like metal. Everything made me nauseous. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. The fatigue wasn't just tiredness, it was like my bones weighed 1,000 pounds. And through all of it, Devin started changing. He was there for the first treatment, held my hand, looked devastated watching them hook me up to those 4 bags. But by the second treatment, he had somewhere to be. A friend needed help with something. By the third treatment, he didn't even come. Said hospitals made him uncomfortable. Said he'd pick me up when I was done. My mama drove me to most of my appointments after that. Devin was always busy. Always had somewhere to go, someone to meet. He'd leave the house at noon and not come back until late at night. When I asked where he'd been, he'd get defensive. Say I was being paranoid. Say the cancer was making me suspicious. Say he needed space to process what we were going through.
Space.
While I was fighting for my life, he needed space. For weeks into my treatment, my best friend Candace came by the house. Candace and I had been friends since high school. She's also my business partner, handles all the property management for my rentals. She's solid, loyal, the kind of friend who tells you the truth even when it hurts. She sat on the edge of my bed, looking uncomfortable. Said she needed to tell me something. Said she'd seen Devin at Lenox Mall 2 days ago with a young woman. A pretty young woman. They were laughing, shopping together, looked real comfortable. I felt my stomach drop. Asked her if she was sure it was him. She said positive. Said she almost walked up to them, but something told her not to. I called Devin right then. Asked him where he'd been that day. He said he'd been at the gym, then ran some errands. I asked him straight up if he'd been to Lenox.
He paused.
Too long. Then said yeah, briefly, to pick something up. I asked who he was with. He said his cousin from Alabama was in town. His cousin Tanya needed help shopping for her kids. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. I was too sick to fight, too weak to investigate, too scared to face the possibility that my husband might be lying to me while I was dying.
So I let it go.
But the doubt was planted. And doubt is like a seed. Once it's there, it grows. 2 weeks later, my daughter Nia mentioned something at dinner. Casual. Innocent. Said Daddy's friend Rochelle had come by the house earlier that week.
Rochelle.
I asked who Rochelle was. Nia shrugged. Said she was nice, had long braids, smelled like expensive perfume. Said Daddy told them she was looking at buying property, and he was showing her some listings. I looked at Devin. He didn't even flinch. Said yeah, she was a potential client. Someone interested in investment properties. I asked why he was showing properties when I wasn't working, when our business was on hold during my treatment. He said he was trying to help out, trying to keep some deals moving, didn't want to bother me with business stuff while I was sick. It sounded reasonable, but something felt off. Real off. Then Mr. Vernon Hayes called. Vernon has been my accountant for 10 years. Handles all my personal and business finances. He's meticulous. Doesn't call unless something's wrong. He asked if I'd authorized several charges on our joint credit card. I said what charges. He listed them. Dinner at STK Atlanta. $467. Hotel stay at the Intercontinental Buckhead. $653 for one night. Jewelry purchase at Tiffany's. $2,300. All within the past month. All while I was bedridden from chemotherapy. I couldn't breathe. I asked Vernon to email me the full statements. Hung up. Sat there in my bed, bald, sick, weak, and realized my husband was spending our money on another woman while I was fighting cancer. I confronted him that night. He exploded. Said I was accusing him of things. Said those charges were legitimate business expenses. The dinner was a client meeting. The hotel was because he was too tired to drive home after a late showing. The jewelry was a gift for me that he was planning to give me after I finished treatment.
Lies.
All lies. But I didn't have the energy to fight. I was going back for my 5th round of chemo the next day. My body was breaking down. I let it go again. But my heart was breaking too. My mama saw it all. Tamara has always had good instincts about people. She caught Devin on the phone one afternoon, laughing, talking low, saying sweet things.
She asked him who he was talking to.
He said a business partner. She told me that night she didn't believe him. Said men don't talk to business partners like that. Said she was worried about what Devin was doing while I was sick. I told her to leave it alone. I didn't have the strength to face it yet. But then came the night that changed everything. The night I knew for sure. I'd taken my pain medication around 9 p.m. Strong stuff that usually knocked me out cold. But that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. I was lying in bed, in the dark, when I heard Devin's voice in the hallway. He was on the phone, talking quiet, probably thought I was asleep. But I heard every word. He said, "Baby, once this is over, we can be together. I'm just waiting it out. The properties are in both our names. I'll get my half. We'll be set. You won't have to worry about nothing." I stopped breathing, laid there in the dark, bald from chemo, weak from fighting cancer, and listened to my husband plan his future without me. Not even without me. After me. After I died. He was waiting for me to die. Counting on it. Planning for it. Already dividing up my assets with his mistress. Something inside me shattered. Then something else hardened. Cold. Sharp. Unbreakable. I laid there the rest of that night. Not sleeping, just thinking. If I survive this, I thought. If I beat this cancer. If I make it through. He will regret every word. Every lie. Every betrayal. He bet on my death. I was going to bet on my survival. And only one of us was going to win. That was the night I decided. I wasn't just fighting cancer anymore. I was fighting for my life in every sense of the word. My health. My wealth. My children. My future. And Devin had just declared himself the enemy. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. If you were in my position, sick, vulnerable, and you overheard your spouse planning their life after your death, what would you do? Would you confront them immediately, or would you play it smart and gather evidence first? Drop your answer in the comments, because I want to know how you would have handled this. And if this story is hitting home for you, if you've ever been betrayed when you were at your lowest, hit that subscribe button. What happens next is going to shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss how I took back everything he thought he'd stolen. The morning after I heard Devin on that phone call, planning his life after my death, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because angry confrontations don't win wars. Information wins wars. Evidence wins wars. Strategy wins wars. And I was about to go to war. I called Candace the next day. Told her everything. The phone call I'd overheard. The suspicious charges. The woman named Rochelle. Candace didn't even hesitate. She said, "We're going to bury him, Keisha. Tell me what you need." I told her I needed two things. First, I needed her to monitor every single transaction on our joint accounts. Every charge, every withdrawal, every payment. Document everything with dates, times, locations, amounts. Second, I needed the name of a good private investigator. Someone discreet. Someone thorough. Someone who could get me proof. She gave me a name within an hour. Marcus Bennett. 20 years in law enforcement, retired detective, now runs his own investigation firm in Midtown. I called him that afternoon while Devin was out doing God knows what. Told Marcus the situation. Dying of cancer, husband cheating, need evidence for potential divorce. He didn't judge. Didn't ask unnecessary questions. Just said he'd take the case, and he'd get me what I needed. Now, hiring a private investigator while you're going through chemotherapy is not easy. I was still sick.
Still weak.
Still losing weight. Still throwing up most days.
But something had shifted in me.
That rage, that betrayal, that absolute fury at what Devin was doing, it gave me fuel. It gave me purpose beyond just surviving cancer. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting to make sure Devin didn't profit from my death. And if I survived, I was fighting to take back everything he thought he'd already claimed. Marcus started surveillance immediately. Within 3 days, he sent me his first report. And let me tell you, reading that report while sitting in a hospital chair getting chemo pumped into my veins was an out-of-body experience. The report was detailed. Time-stamped photos. Location data. Everything. May 14th, 2:17 p.m. Devin picked up Rochelle Banks from her apartment complex in Buckhead. She's 29 years old. An aspiring influencer, which apparently means she posts videos of herself trying on clothes and eating at expensive restaurants while doing absolutely nothing productive with her life. She got into my Mercedes G-Wagon. My car. The one I bought with my money. She sat in my passenger seat like she owned it. They drove to Fogo de Chao in Buckhead. Spent 3 hours there. The bill came to $643. On our joint credit card. The card connected to my business account. My money was paying for my husband to wine and dine his mistress in my car. But it got worse. So much worse. May 18th, 11:43 a.m. Devin and Rochelle at the Avalon in Alpharetta.
Shopping.
He bought her a purse at Louis Vuitton. $1,200. Then they went to lunch at Coletta. Then they went to a hotel. The Kimpton Sylvan Hotel. Checked in at 3:22 p.m. Didn't check out until 7:08 p.m. 4 hours. Marcus included photos of them walking in together, her hand on his back, both of them laughing. I sat there in that chemo chair for in my arm, poison dripping into my veins to kill the cancer trying to kill me, looking at photos of my husband taking his mistress to a hotel in the middle of the afternoon. Using my money. Driving my car. Living his best life while I fought for mine. But here's what made it even more disgusting. Marcus's report showed it wasn't just Rochelle. There was another woman.
Shanice.
26 years old. Works at a boutique in Lenox Mall. Devin had been seeing her too. She was the side piece to the side piece. He was juggling 2 women while his wife was dying. The photos showed Devin with Shanice at SDK Atlanta. Devin with Shanice at Ponce City Market. Devin with Shanice at Topgolf. This man had a whole rotation. A whole system. And he'd gotten comfortable.
Sloppy. Arrogant.
He really thought I was going to die and never find out. Thought he'd walk into my funeral, play the grieving widower, inherit half of everything I'd built, and ride off into the sunset with Rochelle while keeping Shanice on the side. Marcus also did interviews. Talked to people in Devin's circle. Friends, acquaintances, people he'd been running his mouth to. The report included statements from 3 different people who all said the same thing. Devin had been telling people I was basically gone already. That the doctors said I had maybe 6 months. That he was preparing for life after. That he'd already talked to a lawyer about the estate. That he and Rochelle were looking at condos in Midtown for after I passed. After I passed. Like it was a done deal. Like I was already dead. I read those reports in the dark. Late at night, when Devin thought I was asleep. I studied every photo. Every receipt. Every timeline. And instead of breaking down, instead of crying, instead of falling apart, I felt something different.
Clarity.
Cold, sharp, crystal clear clarity. This man had shown me exactly who he was. And I was going to show him exactly who I was. The rage became fuel. Every time I felt sick, every time I wanted to give up during treatment, every time the pain was too much, I thought about those photos. I thought about Devin laughing with Rochelle in my car. I thought about him spending my money on hotel rooms. I thought about him telling people I was already gone. And I fought harder. Dr. Simone Grant noticed. My oncologist, she'd been monitoring my progress, and around week 7 of treatment, she pulled me aside. She said, "Keisha, I don't know what's changed, but whatever you're fighting for, keep fighting. It's working. Your body is responding to treatment better than we expected. The tumor is shrinking. Your blood work is improving. Whatever motivation you've found, hold on to it." I didn't tell her what my motivation was. But I knew. I was running on pure spite. Pure determination. Pure refusal to let Devin win. Cancer wanted to kill me. Devin wanted me dead. And I was going to survive both just to prove them wrong. Candace kept feeding me financial reports. Every week, she'd send me a detailed breakdown of Devin's spending. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Dinners at Stony River, $500. Jewelry from Icebox, $3,000. Spa day at Chateau Elon for $800. He was spending money like I was already dead, and the estate was settled. By month 5 of treatment, something incredible happened. My scans came back showing significant improvement. The tumor had shrunk by 40%. 40%. Dr. Simone was amazed. Said I was responding exceptionally well to treatment. Said if this continued, I could potentially go into remission. Could potentially beat this thing. I was getting stronger. I could walk without getting winded. I could eat without throwing up. I was gaining weight back. My energy was returning. I was winning. Against cancer. And soon, against Devin. But here's the thing. Devin didn't seem happy about my progress. I'd come home from a good appointment, tell him the tumor was shrinking, and instead of celebrating, he'd just nod. Say that's great, baby, real flat. No emotion. No relief. No joy.
And I knew why.
Every day I survived was another day his plan fell apart. He'd already spent the money. Already made promises to Rochelle. Already planned his future. And I was ruining it by refusing to die. One evening in late August, I decided it was time. I'd been gathering evidence for 4 months. Had everything documented. Photos, receipts, witness statements, timeline of every affair, every lie, every betrayal. I printed it all out. Put it in a folder. Waited for Devin to come home from wherever he'd been that day. He walked in around 7 p.m. Showered, smelling like cologne I didn't buy him. Came into the living room where I was sitting. I'd regained enough strength to sit up without feeling like I was dying. My hair was starting to grow back, just peach fuzz but growing. I looked at him and said, "Sit down. We need to talk." He sat. Asked what was wrong. I opened the folder. Spread the photos across the coffee table. Devin with Rochelle at restaurants. Devin with Rochelle at hotels. Devin with Shanice shopping. Devin with Shanice at bars. Devin in my car with another woman. Devin spending my money on his mistresses while I was dying. His face went white, then red. Then he tried to deny it. Said those photos were taken out of context. Said it wasn't what it looked like. I cut him off. Told him I had time-stamped photos, credit card receipts, witness statements, and a private investigator's full report. Told him I knew everything. About Rochelle. About Shanice. About him telling people I was basically already dead. About him planning his life after my death. He switched tactics. Started minimizing. Said okay, yes, he'd spent time with Rochelle, but she was just a friend. Said I'd been sick and he needed emotional support. Said he was lonely. Said watching me go through cancer was hard on him too, and he needed someone to talk to. The audacity. The absolute audacity to sit there and make himself the victim while I was the one who'd been fighting cancer. I asked about the hotels. He stammered. Said sometimes they just needed privacy to talk.
Talk.
In a hotel room. For 4 hours. I asked about Shanice. He said she was nobody. Just someone he met at the mall. Barely knew her. I showed him photos of them holding hands at Topgolf. He said I was reading too much into it. The argument escalated. I was yelling. He was yelling. I told him he was a liar and a cheat and a leech who'd been living off my success for years, and now he was spending my money on other women while I fought for my life. He shot back that I was being paranoid. That the cancer medication was making me delusional. That I was seeing things that weren't there. Then he said the thing I'll never forget. The thing that sealed his fate forever. He looked at me, bald from chemo, still weak, still fighting, and said, "You've been so focused on dying, you forgot how to be a wife." What was I supposed to do, Keisha?
You weren't there for me.
You weren't available. I had needs. I sat there stunned. My husband just blamed me for his cheating. Blamed me for getting cancer. Blamed me for fighting to survive. Said I forgot how to be a wife because I was too busy trying not to die. I stood up. Told him to get out of my house. Pack a bag and leave. He stood up too. Said no. Said this is my house too. Said his name is on the deed and he's not going anywhere. Said if I wanted him gone, I'd have to take him to court. My mama heard the whole thing from upstairs. Came down and told Devin he should be ashamed of himself. Told him any real man would be supporting his wife, not cheating on her while she's dying. Devin told Tamara to stay out of it. My mama nearly jumped on him. I had to hold her back. Devin stormed out that night. Came back 2 days later acting like nothing happened. I'd called Pastor Jerome Mitchell because I didn't know what else to do. Pastor Mitchell came to the house, tried to mediate, suggested marriage counseling. Said every marriage goes through trials and we needed to work through this together with God's guidance. Devin played the victim beautifully. Told Pastor Mitchell that my illness had made me paranoid, suspicious, controlling. Said he'd made mistakes, yes, but they were mistakes born from fear of losing me. Said he was struggling watching me go through cancer and made bad choices. Said he wanted to fix our marriage, wanted to be there for me, wanted us to heal together. I sat there listening to him lie to our pastor's face, watched him cry, watched him perform, and I knew the truth. He didn't want to fix anything. He wanted to protect his access to my money, wanted to make sure when I died, he'd still get his half. After Pastor Mitchell left, Devin came to me, got on his knees, actually got on his knees and cried. Said he was sorry. Said he'd made terrible mistakes. Said he was scared of losing me and handled it all wrong. Said he'd end things with Rochelle immediately. Swore on our children he'd never see her again. Said he wanted to be the husband I deserved. Begged me for forgiveness. I looked at him crying at my feet and felt absolutely nothing. No love, no sympathy, no forgiveness. Just cold calculation. Because I knew he was lying. Knew he'd go right back to her as soon as he thought I'd bought his performance. But here's what Devin didn't understand. I wasn't the same woman he married. Cancer had burned away everything soft in me, left only steel. So I did something he never expected. I forgave him. Told him okay, we'd work on our marriage. Told him I believed he was sorry. Told him we'd get through this together. Held him while he cried with relief. And the whole time, I was playing chess while he was playing checkers. The next day, I called Tyrell Jackson, best divorce attorney in Atlanta. Handles high net worth divorces. Known for being ruthless. Expensive, but worth every penny. I met with him while Devin thought I was at a doctor's appointment. Told Tyrell everything. Showed him all the evidence Marcus had gathered. Told him I wanted to know my options. Tyrell reviewed everything. Told me Georgia is an equitable distribution state, which means in a divorce, assets get divided fairly, but not necessarily 50-50. Said fault matters. Adultery matters. He asked me detailed questions about our assets. What was in my name? What was in Devin's name? What was joint? When properties were purchased? How money was earned? Here's what we discovered. Most of my properties were purchased before marriage or during marriage with income from my business, which was solely in my name. The house in Cascade Heights was joint, but I'd made every mortgage payment from my business account. The cars were titled to each of us individually. My business, my company, my commercial properties, all mine. Devin's name wasn't on any of it because he'd contributed nothing to it. But here's the problem. Georgia law says even if assets are in one spouse's name, if they were acquired during the marriage, they could be considered marital property. Devin could potentially claim he contributed to my success by being the stay-at-home parent. Could argue his domestic work allowed me to build my business. Could fight for half of everything even though he hadn't earned a dollar of it. Tyrell said we needed strategy. Said if we filed for divorce now, it would be a fight. Devin would lawyer up. Would drag it out. Would try to take me for everything. But if we built an airtight case showing his adultery, his financial abuse, his abandonment during my illness, we could minimize what he'd get. Said I needed more evidence. More documentation.
More time.
So that's what I did. I played the loving, forgiving wife. Pretended to reconcile. Pretended to believe Devin's promises. Meanwhile, I kept Marcus on retainer.
Kept documenting.
Kept gathering evidence. And I kept fighting cancer. By month 6 of treatment, my scans showed even more improvement. The tumor had shrunk by 70%. 70%. Dr. Simone said if this continued for another 2 months, I could potentially go into full remission. I was gaining weight. My hair was growing back. I could walk without fatigue. I could work part-time again. I was beating cancer. And Devin looked sick watching it happen. He'd put all his chips on me dying. And I was thriving. Getting stronger every week. Reclaiming my life. Reclaiming my power. He thought he'd won when I forgave him. Thought I'd bought his tears and apologies. Got comfortable again. Got bold. Within 2 weeks of our supposed reconciliation, Marcus called me with new surveillance. Devin was back with Rochelle. Didn't even wait a month. They'd been at the Westin Buckhead 2 nights in a row. $350 a night. My money. My credit card. But here's where it got truly twisted. Marcus had installed listening devices in Devin's car. Legal in Georgia with proper authorization, which I had. The recordings were devastating. Devin and Rochelle talking freely, thinking they were alone. Rochelle asking when they could finally be together. Devin saying soon. Saying Keisha was terminal, and it was just a matter of time. Saying the doctors gave her maybe another year at most. Saying once she was gone, they'd get married. Saying he'd already looked at condos for them in Midtown. Rochelle asked what about the money, the properties. Devin said his lawyer told him he'd get half. Said Keisha had built everything during their marriage, so he was entitled to half of it all. Said they'd be set for life. Said Rochelle wouldn't have to work anymore. Could focus on her influencer career. Could have everything she wanted. Then they started shopping for furniture. Actual furniture. For my house. The house I was still living in. The house where I was still fighting cancer. Rochelle was on her phone looking at dining room sets, bedroom furniture, living room couches, talking about how she'd redecorate once the house was theirs. Devin was encouraging her. Saying get whatever you want, baby. We'll have the money. Marcus sent me video of them at rooms to go. Ashley furniture, walking through showrooms, Rochelle pointing at expensive bedroom sets, saying this is what I want for our master bedroom. Our master bedroom. The master bedroom where I was still sleeping. Where I'd laid sick for months. Where I'd heard Devin on the phone planning my replacement. She was already planning to move into my space. My life. Like I was already dead and buried. I watched that footage in my mama's bedroom because I couldn't watch it in mine, knowing Devin would be there later. Tamara sat next to me, both of us watching my husband and his mistress shop for furniture to put in my house after I died. My mama asked what I was going to do. I looked at her and said, I'm going to show him what happens when you bet against me. I'm going to take everything. And I'm going to make sure he never forgets that I survived. By month 8, September 2023, my scans came back clear. Completely clear. No evidence of active cancer. Full remission. I'd beaten it. I'd survived stage 3 lung cancer. Dr. Simone hugged me, crying. Said I was a miracle. Said my determination and fight had made all the difference. Said she'd never seen someone respond to treatment the way I had. I called Devin from a hospital to tell him. You know what he said? Not congratulations. Not thank God. Not I'm so happy. He said, that's great, and hung up. 30 seconds. That's how long my husband stayed on the phone after learning his wife had beaten cancer. Because it wasn't great for him. It was a disaster. His whole plan had just collapsed. I wasn't dying. I was thriving. And he was trapped. That night, Devin didn't come home until after midnight. When he finally walked in, I was sitting in the living room, lights off, waiting. I asked where he'd been. He said driving around, needed to think. I asked what he needed to think about. He said nothing, just processing everything. Within a week of my remission, Marcus sent me new surveillance. Devin was back with Rochelle. Heavier than ever. Like he was desperate. Like he was trying to figure out his next move now that I wasn't dying. The recordings showed Rochelle panicking. Asking what they were going to do now. Asking if he was going to leave me anyway. Devin saying he needed time to figure it out. Saying it was complicated now. I had everything I needed. 8 months of surveillance. Documented affairs with multiple women. Financial records showing him spending tens of thousands of my dollars on his mistresses. Recordings of him declaring me terminal. Photos of him furniture shopping for my house with his replacement. Text messages. Emails. Everything. I called Tyrell Jackson and told him I was ready. Ready to file. Ready to destroy Devin's world the way he'd tried to destroy mine. Tyrell said we had enough evidence to bury him. Said Devin would walk away with almost nothing if we played this right. Said to give him 2 weeks to prepare the filing. But I wasn't going to just file divorce papers. That was too easy. Too clean. Devin had humiliated me. Betrayed me while I was dying. Spent my money. Planned my funeral while I was still alive. I wanted him to feel every ounce of pain he'd caused me. I wanted public accountability. I wanted everyone who knew us to see exactly who he was. I wanted complete and total destruction. And I was about to get it. But here's my question for you, because I need to know. If you'd gathered all this evidence, if you'd caught your spouse red-handed planning their life after your death, would you have filed for divorce quietly, or would you have exposed them publicly first? Would you have wanted privacy, or would you have wanted everyone to know the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're invested in seeing how I took this man down piece by piece, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I did next is the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. Trust me, you don't want to miss the final takedown. Tyrell Jackson sat across from me in his office in Buckhead, my entire case spread across his mahogany desk. 8 months of surveillance. Thousands of dollars in documented infidelity spending. Recordings of Devin planning his life after my death. Photos of him with Rochelle, with Shanice, living his best life while I fought cancer. Tyrell looked at everything and then looked at me with this expression I'll never forget. He said, "Keisha, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen cheating spouses. I've seen financial abuse. I've seen terrible betrayals. But what your husband did, planning your estate while you were still alive, spending your money on his mistress while you were in chemo, that's a level of cruelty I rarely see. We're going to destroy him legally." He explained that Georgia law does consider fault in divorce proceedings. Adultery matters. Especially adultery, this egregious, this documented, this cruel. He said most of my properties were purchased either before marriage or during marriage with income solely from my business, which was in my name only. Devin had never contributed a dollar to my real estate company, never helped with a single deal, never worked on a single property after we got married. His name wasn't on my business, wasn't on my commercial properties, wasn't on my rental portfolio. The house in Cascade Heights, the one we'd lived in for 12 years, that was joint property. Both our names on the deed.
Same with the cars.
Devin's Range Rover was titled to him. My Mercedes G-Wagon was titled to me, but we'd purchased both during the marriage with my income. Tyrell said Devin could try to claim he'd contributed to my success through domestic labor, being the stay-at-home parent, which is a legitimate argument in some cases. But given the adultery, the financial abuse, the abandonment during my illness, any judge would see through that argument. Devin had been a leech, not a partner. Tyrell laid out the best-case scenario. With the evidence we had, I could walk away with my business, all my properties, my investments, primary custody of the kids, and Devin would get minimal assets. Maybe the house, maybe one car, but that would be it. No alimony. No stake in my business. Nothing. But here's the thing. I didn't just want a fair divorce settlement. I didn't just want to protect my assets. I wanted Devin to feel exactly what I'd felt. The betrayal. The humiliation. The pain of realizing someone you loved was waiting for you to die. I wanted him to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people like garbage and walk away unscathed. So, I planned something special. Something poetic. Something that would make Devin play his role one last time before I destroyed him. I decided to host a cancer remission celebration dinner at our home. Sent out invitations to everyone. Family.
Friends.
Business associates. People from church. Pastor Jerome Mitchell. Candace. My mama Tamara. My kids. I invited 50 people to celebrate my survival. My victory over cancer. And Devin had to be there, playing the supportive husband, smiling for photos, pretending he was happy I'd survived. The dinner was set for a Saturday evening in late September. I hired caterers, had the house cleaned top to bottom, set up tables in our backyard under string lights. It was beautiful. Everything I dreamed of when I was sick in bed thinking I might not make it. This was my victory party. My declaration that I'd won. Devin was nervous the whole week leading up to it. Kept asking why we were doing such a big event, saying it seemed excessive. I told him I wanted to celebrate with the people who'd supported me through the hardest time of my life. He couldn't argue without looking like a terrible husband, so he went along with it. The night of the dinner, people started arriving around 6. Everyone hugged me, told me how amazing I looked, how strong I was, how they'd prayed for me. My hair had grown back enough that I had a short natural cut. I'd gained back 20 of the 30 pounds I'd lost. I was wearing a gold dress, makeup, heels. I looked alive, vibrant, victorious. And Devin stood next to me at the door, greeting people, playing his part. Jamal and Nia were there, helping serve drinks, talking to guests. My son had grown so much during my illness. At 16, he'd become the man of the house in ways Devin never was. He'd helped his grandmother take care of me, driven me to appointments when I was too weak, held my hand through the worst days. Nia, my 13-year-old baby girl, she'd been so scared, but so brave. Both my kids had seen more than children should see. And they'd also seen who their father really was. Around 7:30, after everyone had eaten, I stood up to give a speech. The backyard got quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. I thanked them for coming. Thanked them for their support through my cancer journey. Thanked my mama Tamara for moving in and taking care of everything. Thanked Candace for running my business while I was sick. Thanked Dr. Simone Grant for her exceptional care. Thanked my kids for being strong. Thanked Pastor Mitchell for his prayers. And I barely mentioned Devin. I said, and to my husband for being here. That was it. 5 words. Everyone noticed. I saw people exchange glances. Saw Candace smirk into her wine glass. Saw my mama nod with satisfaction. Devin noticed too. I watched his jaw tighten. Watched his eyes narrow. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know what. The conversations where you declared me terminal and planned your life after my death. Everything. Devin's face went white. He opened folder 2. Started flipping through. Photos of him and Rochelle kissing outside the Westin. Receipts from Fogo de Chao. Bank statements showing thousands of dollars spent at hotels. Transcripts of recorded conversations where he told Rochelle I was dying and they'd be together soon. Photos of them shopping for furniture for my house. It was all there. Undeniable.
Damning.
Complete. He looked up at me, and I said, you have a choice. You can sign these divorce papers with my terms, or I can expose everything. To your family. To our church.
To everyone we know.
And then we'll go to court and let a judge decide what you deserve. Which do you think will be worse for you? He asked what my terms were. I told him. He gets the house in Cascade Heights and his Range Rover. That's it. I keep my business, all my properties, all my investments, and primary custody of Jamal and Nia. He gets standard visitation if the kids want it, but I'm not forcing them to spend time with him. No alimony. No stake in my company. Nothing else. And he has 24 hours to sign, or the offer expires and we go to war in court. Devin exploded. Stood up, yelling. Called me vindictive. Said I was punishing him for being human. Said everyone makes mistakes. Said I was being cruel and unfair. Said the house alone wasn't nearly half of what I had. Said he'd contributed to my success by raising our kids. Said he deserved more. Then he said it. The thing that proved I was right about everything. He yelled. You were dying. I had needs. What was I supposed to do? Just wait around while you died? I stood there, completely calm, and said, but I didn't die, Devin. That's your problem. You planned a whole life on my grave. You spent my money like I was already dead. You told your mistress she could move into my house. You shopped for furniture to replace mine. You declared me terminal to anyone who would listen. You bet everything on me dying. And I survived. That's what you can't handle. Not that you got caught, but that I lived. He didn't have a response to that. Just stood there, breathing hard, realizing I was right. His whole plan had hinged on my death, and I'd ruined it by beating cancer. I told him the clock was ticking. 24 hours. Sign or fight. His choice. Then I walked upstairs and left him standing in the living room with those folders. He stormed out around midnight. I tracked his phone, a trick Marcus had taught me. He drove straight to Rochelle's apartment in Buckhead. Stayed there until morning. I can only imagine that conversation. Devin showing up, devastated, showing her the divorce papers, probably telling her everything was falling apart. Marcus had eyes on Rochelle's building. Got footage of Devin leaving the next morning. He looked destroyed. Defeated. Marcus said Rochelle didn't come out with him. Didn't walk him to his car. Didn't even stand at the door. Just shut it behind him. Because here's what Devin didn't realize. Rochelle wasn't in love with him. She was in love with the lifestyle. The money. The properties. The future she thought she'd have as the wife of a wealthy man. But now she knew the truth. Devin had nothing. Without me, he was broke. A 41-year-old unemployed man with no income, no assets, and no prospects. Why would she stay with that? Within a week, I got confirmation from Marcus. Rochelle had dumped him. Blocked his number. Blocked him on social media. Moved on. She'd already started posting pictures with some other man, some banker from Colony Square. Devin had been replaced in her life faster than he'd tried to replace me in his. The 24 hours passed. Devin didn't sign. Instead, he hired a lawyer. Some mid-tier attorney from Marietta who probably promised him he could get half of everything. Devin actually thought he could fight me in court and win. Thought a judge would see him as the victim. The abandoned husband whose sick wife turned mean and kicked him out. He was delusional. Court date was set for November. 2 months away. During that time, Devin moved out. Rented an apartment in Sandy Springs using money from our joint account, which I'd already frozen, so he had to beg his brother for the deposit. He tried to take furniture from the house. I had everything documented, had movers come catalog every piece of property, made sure he couldn't take anything that was mine. He got his clothes, his personal items, and nothing else. He tried to turn our kids against me. Told Jamal and Nia that I was being unfair, that I was keeping them from their father, that he loved them, and this wasn't his fault. My son looked at his father and said, "Dad, we know about Rochelle. We know you were cheating on Mom while she was sick. Don't lie to us, too." Turns out, kids aren't stupid. They'd seen the signs. Noticed their father was never home. Noticed the expensive gifts he couldn't explain. Heard the whispered phone calls. They'd known something was wrong, and when I sat them down and explained I was divorcing their father because he'd been unfaithful, they weren't surprised. They were relieved. Relieved they didn't have to pretend anymore. Relieved to see me finally standing up for myself. November came. Court date. I walked into that Fulton County courthouse with Tyrell Jackson, Candace, and my mama. Devin walked in with his lawyer. He looked terrible. Lost weight. Aged 10 years. Stress of losing everything will do that to you. The hearing wasn't long. Tyrell presented our evidence. The judge, a black woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Coleman, reviewed everything. Photos, bank statements, recordings, text messages. She looked at Devin with pure disgust. Asked him if he had anything to say in his defense. Devin's lawyer tried to argue that Devin had contributed to the marriage through domestic labor, that he deserved equitable distribution regardless of fault. Judge Coleman cut him off. Said, "Counselor, your client spent 8 months committing adultery with multiple women while his wife fought cancer. He used marital funds to wine and dine his mistresses. He planned his wife's estate while she was still alive. There is no amount of domestic labor that entitles him to benefit from this cruelty." She ruled in my favor on every single point. I kept my business, all my properties, all my investments, primary custody of the kids with Devin getting supervised visitation only until he could prove stability. She awarded him the house in Cascade Heights and his Range Rover. That was it. No alimony, no business stake, nothing else. She said Devin was lucky she couldn't force him to pay back the marital funds he'd wasted on his affairs, but she was awarding me additional assets to compensate. Devin's face, when that ruling came down, was something I'll never forget. Pure devastation. He'd really thought he'd get half. Thought he'd walk away wealthy. Thought he'd ride my coattails into a comfortable future even after everything he'd done. And Judge Coleman had just told him he was getting nothing. But here's the beautiful part. The part I'd planned. The part that made everything perfect. That house Devin got, the one in Cascade Heights, I'd refinanced it 3 months earlier. Took out a new mortgage, put it solely in Devin's name, used the cash to buy another investment property. The house now had a $450,000 mortgage attached to it. And Devin's name was the only one on that loan. Devin didn't realize it at first. He was just happy to have the house. thought he'd won something. But within a month, when that first mortgage payment came due, $5,300, he panicked. He had no income, no job, no savings. He'd spent everything on Rochelle and Shanice. He couldn't make the payment. Called me begging for help. I said, "Devin, that's your house now. Your responsibility. Good luck." He missed the first payment, then the second, then the third. By month 6, the bank foreclosed. Devin lost the house. The one asset he'd been awarded in the divorce gone. He had to move in with his brother in College Park. His brother Anthony, who never liked Devin much, barely tolerated him being there. Devin was sleeping on a couch at 42 years old, broke, unemployed, and completely alone. Meanwhile, Shanice, the other woman Devin had been seeing, the side piece to the side piece, she posted about their relationship on social media. Posted old photos of them together with captions like, "Knew him when he was married, should have known better, dodged a bullet." She aired everything. Every lie Devin told her. Every promise he made. Every bit of drama. It went semi-viral in Atlanta. People were sharing it, commenting, dragging Devin through the mud. His reputation was destroyed. People at our church found out everything. Pastor Mitchell had to ask Devin not to attend services anymore because his presence was causing disruption. People literally didn't want to worship in the same building as him. His friends distanced themselves. Nobody wanted to be associated with the man who cheated on his wife while she was dying of cancer. Devin tried to get his old construction job back. The company said no. His former boss had heard about everything, said he didn't want that kind of person representing his business. Devin eventually found work with a smaller construction company, doing basic labor, making $15 an hour. At 42, after living a luxury lifestyle for years, after thinking he'd inherit millions, he was back to where he started, except now everyone knew who he really was. 1 year later, October 2024, everything in my life had changed. I was cancer-free. My 1-year scans came back completely clear. No evidence of disease. Dr. Simone said I was officially in remission, and my prognosis was excellent. I'd beaten stage 3 lung cancer. I'd survived. My business was thriving. Better than ever. I'd purchased 2 more commercial properties during the divorce proceedings. A small office building in East Point and a retail plaza in South Fulton. My portfolio was now worth over $15 million. The divorce hadn't slowed me down. If anything, it had motivated me to build even more, to prove that I didn't need Devin, had never needed Devin, that everything I had was because of me. My kids were adjusting well. Jamal was 17 now, looking at colleges, talking about studying business. He told me one night, "Mom, I watched you build everything from nothing. Watched you beat cancer. Watched you stand up to Dad. You're the strongest person I know. I'm proud to be your son." Nia was 14, doing well in school, therapy helping her process everything. She told me, "Mom, we knew Dad was different. We saw how he treated you. We're proud of you for leaving." Hearing that from my kids meant everything. More than the money. More than the properties. More than winning in court. Knowing my children respected me, understood why I did what I did, that meant I'd truly won. I started a nonprofit. Called it Second Chance Foundation. It provides support for cancer patients going through divorce. Financial assistance, legal referrals, counseling, support groups. Because I learned during my journey that I wasn't alone. There are so many people fighting cancer, while also fighting to escape toxic marriages. So many people being abused by partners who see their illness as an opportunity. I wanted to help them. Wanted to give them the resources I'd had to fight for. I was even dating again. His name is Darnell. He's an oncology nurse at Emory, actually worked on my floor during some of my treatments. We ran into each other at a coffee shop 6 months after my divorce was finalized. Started talking. He asked me out. I said yes. Darnell is kind, patient, steady. Everything Devin wasn't. He'd seen me at my worst, during chemo, and still saw beauty in me. Still saw strength. We were taking it slow, but it felt right. Felt healthy. Felt like what love is supposed to feel like. One Saturday morning, I was at the Kroger in Southwest Atlanta, doing regular grocery shopping, something I'd rarely done during my business building years, but now enjoyed. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when I heard someone say my name. I turned around and there was Devin. He looked terrible.
Aged.
Worn down. He was wearing a construction company t-shirt, dirt under his nails, exhaustion in his eyes. We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, he said, "Keisha, you look good." I said, "Thank you." He said, "I heard about your nonprofit." "That's amazing." I said, "I'm doing well, Devin." He nodded. Then he said, "I need to tell you something. I made the biggest mistake of my life. What I did to you, how I treated you, I was wrong. I was stupid, selfish. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me."
I'm sorry.
"I'm so sorry." I looked at this man who'd been my husband for 16 years. This man who'd promised to love me in sickness and health and then betrayed me in my sickest moment. This man who'd waited for me to die so he could cash out. And I felt nothing. No anger. No pain. No love. Nothing. He'd become irrelevant. I said, "Devin, I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you. For me." Because carrying that anger was poison, and I'd already had enough poison in my body from chemo. I forgave you so I could heal. So I could move forward. So I could be free. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get access to my life again. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You chose to bet on my death. I chose to bet on myself. We both got exactly what we deserved. I walked away. Didn't look back. Left him standing there in the produce section of Kroger, holding his basket, watching the life he could have had walk away in designer shoes and perfect health. I got in my car, my new Mercedes S-Class, and drove back to my new home. Not the Cascade Heights house where Devin had betrayed me. I'd sold that property immediately after the divorce. Bought a beautiful contemporary home in Brookhaven with a view of the city skyline. Fresh start. Clean slate. No memories of sickness or betrayal. Just space for my future. Let me tell you something. Some of you watching this might be going through your own storms right now. Maybe it's cancer. Maybe it's betrayal. Maybe it's financial struggle. Maybe it's all of the above. Let me tell you what I learned through the worst year of my life. Your darkest moment will show you who people really are. And more importantly, it'll show you who you really are. Devin thought my weakness was his opportunity. He saw me sick, vulnerable, dying, and thought that was his chance to upgrade his life. What he didn't understand is that my cancer didn't make me weak. It made me see clearly. It burned away everything that wasn't real. Burned away my illusions about my marriage. Burned away my willingness to accept less than I deserved. Burned away the version of me that would have forgiven him and stayed. Cancer forced me to fight for my life. And once you've fought that hard just to breathe, just to survive another day, you realize you can fight for anything. You realize you're stronger than you ever knew. You realize that people who don't value you don't deserve access to you. I survived cancer. And honestly, surviving Devin was easier. Cancer was a worthy opponent. It was my own cells betraying me, something I couldn't control. But Devin, he was just a weak man making weak choices. And once I decided he wouldn't win, there was no universe where he could. To anyone out there fighting battles on multiple fronts, health battles, relationship battles, financial battles, let me tell you this. Keep fighting. Not for them. Not to prove anything to anyone else. For you. For your peace. For your future. For your children if you have them. For the life you deserve. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. I mean, yes, I destroyed Devin financially and socially. But that wasn't the revenge. The revenge is that I'm thriving. That I'm healthy. That I'm wealthy. That I'm at peace. That I wake up every morning in my beautiful home, run my successful business, spend time with my kids, date a good man, and Devin is completely irrelevant to my happiness. That's the revenge. Becoming so whole, so successful, so unbothered that the person who tried to break you becomes a footnote in your story. I didn't just survive. I won. I won against cancer. I won against betrayal. I won against a system that often favors men in divorce. I won because I refused to die when everyone expected me to. I won because I'm still here, still building, still growing, still living my best life. And if you're still fighting your battles, you're going to win too. Maybe not today. Maybe not next month. But if you keep fighting, if you refuse to give up, if you bet on yourself the way I bet on myself, you will win. I promise you that. If this story resonated with you, if you've been betrayed, or you're fighting your own battle right now, I want you to do something for me. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's going through hell and needs to know they can make it through. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in my situation. Would you have been as ruthless as I was? Or would you have handled it differently? I want to know. And listen, if you've made it this far, if you've watched my entire story, that tells me you're invested. You're rooting for people who refuse to be victims. You're rooting for survivors. So hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm going to keep sharing stories of people who fought back, who stood up, who refused to let life break them. Stories of strength. Stories of justice. Stories of people who bet on themselves and won. Remember this. Never bet against a woman who's already survived her worst nightmare. We're unbreakable. We're unstoppable. And we always win in the end. Always. My name is Keisha Whitmore. I'm a real estate developer, a mother, a cancer survivor, a woman who refused to die when it was convenient for everyone else. And I'm living proof that your worst moment can become your greatest transformation. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go write yours.